Everything I know about computers tells me this should not work as well as it does. It's got an A18 Pro iPhone processor in it. It only has 8 gigabytes of RAM, yet as I kept throwing tasks at it, it kept performing shockingly well. And dang it, it won me over.
This is Brad. He likes to review the tech. He also likes to draw. And this here is his theme song.
If you're coming from an Apple laptop already, going to the Macbook Neo is going to feel incredibly familiar. But if you're coming from a Chromebook or an inexpensive Windows laptop in this price range, this is going to feel like a huge upgrade to you. The build quality of this laptop overall really impressed me. The screen, it gets a whole lot brighter than I thought it would. The colors look surprisingly good. The glass, it goes edge to edge. There isn't a clunky plastic enclosure like other cheap laptops have. The aluminum body, it feels great. Apple makes everything aluminum these days, so if you're coming from another Apple device, this probably isn't going to be that surprising, but if you're using other laptops at this price point, these materials are not normal. Even the hinge feels good. I know it's a stupid thing, but it's not too tight. It doesn't feel too loose. You can open this laptop with one hand without the laptop just completely tilting back. The keyboard, it feels really good to type on. The speakers sound far better than they have any business sounding. They are side firing, so they do sound slightly more echoey than what you might expect on a MacBook Pro, but still, they're pretty good. FaceTime camera, it's solid. Even the trackpad, which isn't a Force Touch trackpad that we see on other Macs, is still great. It absolutely smokes most other Windows laptop trackpads that I have ever used. I hate Windows laptops trackpads. And in my time with this laptop, I never once thought I'm using a cheap laptop. Apple cuts a lot of corners here to make this laptop fit in at this price point, but what's important is that they know which corners to cut. Now, for comparison's sake, I have two laptops here that I grabbed off my shelf. Both of these are in the price range. This is a Chromebook that's like a year and a half old, and this is a Lenovo that came out last fall. This started at $700. I think you can find it for a little under $500 now. And I want to point out, these are not bad laptops. I actually like them, but they are inexpensive. And when I compare the build quality, all the things I just listed about the Neo, it just dumpsters these things. Their plastic bodies, how poorly weighted they are. Battery life. When you try to open them with one hand, you just can't. The hinges work, but they're just meh. Of course, there's a plastic rim around the screen, and the screen itself just doesn't look as good. The speakers are kind of terrible, honestly. The webcams are nothing to write home about. The trackpads, oh my god, the trackpads are so bad on these laptops. I hate them. They're diving board trackpads, so you can only click on the front half of them. The Neo does all of these little things so well. Okay, I gotta stop glazing this thing because you're gonna think it's the greatest laptop ever, but there are drawbacks. In fact, that 8 gigabytes of RAM is the thing that really worries me. Like, a lot. Then of course there's the 256 gigabytes of storage. For any creative workflow, that is just going to be untenable long term. You're going to be fighting constantly with your storage. For art, illustration, design, that sort of thing, this is going to fill up so fast. Also, if you're new here, you're probably wondering, why is he talking about creative workflows? My name's Brad. I review tech for creative professionals, illustrators, designers, people like that. And I support this channel by selling my drawing courses. So if you've ever wanted to pick up a new hobby, like sketching and drawing, check out my course, Learn to Draw in 60 Days, over on my website. Every day there's a new lesson. You can kind of go at your own speed. Right now, there's a discount that you can apply at checkout, monitor month, because that's what it is around here, even though this is not a monitor. I've reviewed a lot of those this month, but still feel free to use the discount. If you want to learn more, go to bradsartschool.com. So I picked up this Neo for my wife. She has an old 13-inch MacBook Pro from back in the butterfly keyboard days, and surprisingly, it still holds up really well. But the big problem with that device is it doesn't get system updates anymore, and she's running into these problems where she has to update her browser, and if the browser isn't updated, she can't run the apps that she needs to run. It's really annoying that a perfectly good computer is obsolete because of software, not because of the performance of the computer itself, but that's another story. I thought maybe the Neo could work for her. She wants a MacBook. We don't want to spend that much on it, and if I got it for this review, then I could hand it down to her when I'm done. And overall, this thing passed that test with flying colors. Of course, I did want to see how some of the creative software out there would do. I grabbed the Adobe suite because it tends to run kind of heavy. It's not super well optimized. optimized. And I used it for a few days because I thought, hey, a little frustration is good for the soul now and then, right? In fact, I edited my entire video on drawing shortcut remotes on the Neo, and what do you know? It was fine. I never ran into a spinning beach ball or stutters or slowdowns or anything. Using Premiere Pro, exporting 4K video, it was fine. It did take about 8 minutes or so to export, so it is going to take longer than some of the other machines I have sitting around, but if you consider that I'm only exporting 1 or 2 videos a week, that 8 minutes isn't really that big a deal. I made the thumbnail for my Studio XDR review on the MacBook Neo. Pulled over the photo that I took on my phone, removed the parts in the background, generally cleaned it up, and again, it passed that test with flying colors. Now, none of this should be that surprising to me, seeing as how that A18 Pro processor that is in the Neo here has similar performance to the M1 processor, and I've been using the M1 in my MacBook Pro for the last several years, although technically that's an M1 Pro, but still similar, comparable performance we get here. And also worth noting that M1 MacBook Pro still runs great after all these years. Of course, the thing that has scared me all along with this laptop is the RAM. So how is it doing all of this with just 8 gigabytes of RAM? Well, modern Macs come with pretty fast SSD drives in them. That's your storage. When you need more RAM, it takes things that aren't front and center, like maybe some browser tabs that you've had open for a while, and it takes them and it transfers them over to the SSD. Since the SSD that is being used here is pretty speedy, you don't necessarily notice so much when you jump back over to that tab and it pulls it from the SSD instead of the RAM. Now, that's not to say you don't notice if you start looking for that, because I did. At one point when I was installing software, I needed to restart the computer, which required me to go in and close a bunch of things, close all the software before rebooting. And when I was doing that, I was reactivating that stuff and closing it down. And there I noticed a slight delay, but it wasn't a huge delay. It was just a slight delay. Now, I mentioned that the 256 gigabytes of storage on the base mode, you can get 512 if you spend another $100. That also comes with Touch ID, by the way. That 256 gigs is not a lot. I used almost this entire drive already just in my few days of work. Video editing sucks like that. So I'm using 209 gigabytes of the available 245 here. But it's worth pointing out that the system data and Mac OS are taking up almost 100 gigabytes all by themselves. Even if I wasn't editing video and I wasn't designing full-time or doing illustration on this, I would probably still want more storage. It's sneaky how fast it fills up. You're going to be fine for several months, but eventually you're going to be in a place where you have to start managing your space better and better, and you're constantly going to have to freeing up space on your computer in order for it to run effectively. After pulling all that video footage down and storing it on the hard drive, Photoshop started throwing warnings at me like this, saying that I didn't have enough room for my scratch disks, and it's really easy to hit that 100 gigabyte limit here. Now, there are 2 USB Type-C ports on one side of this, no ports on the other side, so those are the only 2 that you get. It's also worth noting one of those you're probably going to want to use for charging. In fact, you're going to have to use it for charging. Fortunately, the A18 Pro processor has the same great battery life that its beefier M series cousins do. When video editing, I was trending to about 5 hours of battery life on this thing. Really solid. If you're not doing that intensive, you're probably going to see better battery life, something that's going to last you even longer. Since I had that second port, you know it, I had to try out a drawing tablet on the Neo. So external displays only work on one of the ports. Now, thankfully, the Mac knows that you have plugged this into the wrong port, and it tells you, hey, plug it into the other one, buddy. And those are the little nice details about being in the Mac ecosystem, since it knows the software and the hardware and generally what you're trying to do. It can tell you what is going wrong there, so you're not going to spend a ton of time troubleshooting. And the verdict here, not too surprising, but this totally works with a drawing tablet. And the USB-C is good enough to handle the data and the video transfer at the same time, so this is the only cord you need to connect this particular drawing tablet. In fact, most 13 or 16-inch tablets are going to work the same way nowadays. No dongles needed. So even though it does all of this, and it does it well, do I recommend the MacBook Neo for creative work? No, I don't. I still worry about the speed of this thing in the future. I still worry about how much storage that it comes with, on at least on the base model. I really worry about this thing bottlenecking in the future. If you have a ton of tabs open, you're using Premiere, you're using Photoshop, and you're using so many different programs at the same time, are you going to start to notice that hitching and that slow down more? Now, if you're like my life and you live in email and Google Docs and Zoom, then you can totally get by with a laptop like this. I think this is going to work extraordinarily well for her. And that's where this really impresses me. It is a very high quality device for the price point that you're getting it at. What do you think about the MacBook Neo? Let me know down below in the comments. Thank you all for watching the video, and I'll talk to you in a couple of days.